Okay, director said we are airborne, Benjamin.
Nisombe too. Welcome back. We're back on your screens, Sweetie Abochi and yours truly. We'll be introducing our guest shortly, but let's get right down to it. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helps us bring you this segment every weekday. And as always, they are offering you same. If you're a man, they are offering you prostate screening for free. If you're a woman, they are offering you fertility screening for free. I've dilated on these matters many times. You don't want to be caught pants down, pardon the pun. So just head to any of the branches of Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, starting from here in Accra. They are at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. Then there's Kumasi, Kronomo Abwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrady Anaji State, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Esiama Nzema. Their call lines are 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But just the start of the news review, and guess who joins us this morning? Dr. Kwame Asasanti. He's a political scientist. He is also director of the Center for European Studies. He'll be joining us in a bit, but I'll come now into the studio. There's this issue about Professor Stephen Ade questioning, has free SHS been implemented illegally up to this point? And I know some people will be watching this morning and saying, there he goes again. He's always railing against. One of the biggest problems with our country is policy and its implementation.
Yeah.
Fine policies, poor implementation. But in this case, the policy, as far as some of us know it, as far as the ranking member of the Education Committee knows it. Can you imagine that? I mean, at their level, he says he's not seen a proper full policy document. Yeah. We've run the thing.
4 years? Or?
It's been more than that.
Okay.
I mean, free SHS, right after 2016, 2017, thereabouts, there were, for how many years now? And you see, when you say these things, then people will say, no, it's a good idea being implemented badly. But the point is, if you don't have a proper policy document, what are you implementing? How are you implementing it? And some of the challenges, you see, and I think that is part of why this bit about a review has taken so long. Because based on what are you going to act? But then again,
but what stops them from actually putting it together now? I mean, the concerns have been raised. If you don't have a proper policy framework, and we're talking about it, what stops you from actually quickly putting it together?
Well, they have said that is why the bill they want to put together the free SHS bit in there. But why implement it at this time? It's almost as though, let's tie the hands of any future. Listen, there are ways of going about this and maybe changing everything all the same. I don't know what the plan is. Let's stop being political and do what must be done in a right way. It's not about the politics. It's not about who brought what policy and how it's going. Let's do it right. That's it.
Well. And then the LI for regulating cement prices has been laid. And let's see how that goes. The NDC caucus are saying they've softened their stance. But, I mean, really, what could they have done about it?
I listened to, Agboja say that so the thorny issue in there was about price regulation.
Yes.
You know, it reminds me of stories about the Kalabule days where there was control price, right? In the 80s. Price regulation, we're in an open market. It's a capital market. You don't go regulating. Private sector, the push and pull factors, demand and supply, determine the prices of products. You don't go regulating. They claim, when I listened to, I think, Honorable Agboja, that issue had been ironed out. But you would hear, the Tamale Central legislator, Murtala Mohammed, say that, no, we shouldn't have. But then again, it is what it is. Would you like to bring in Dr. Asasanti?
Dr. Kwame Asasanti joins us now on phone. Doc, good morning to you. It's a rather wet morning. How are you doing?
I'm fine, Titi. Good morning, and good morning to Ben, and good morning to our viewers and listeners.
Good morning, Doc.
So let's get straight into it, Doc. What's on your mind this morning? You have about a minute or two to get into it.
Yes. I will look at this issue that the former National Security Minister touched about.
You mean Francis Poku, former National Security Advisor?
Yeah, Mr. Francis Poku.
Right.
Yes. I think last weekend he had a session, and then he did say that there are threats to this, our democracy and all that. And you saw that statement was very heavy for you and I, simply because we have worked so very hard to sustain and nurture this democracy. So if there are real threats that people find that, they prefer other systems to democracy, then all of us must get up and get our shoulders to the wheel and work very hard to save this democracy. But there are a few questions I have for Mr. Poku. I don't doubt his competence. I don't doubt what he knows in the area of security and all that. But I really want him to help me to find answers. Is it a research that he has done, or is it the case that from where he sits, he has seen those signs, or is it the case that there is a certain information he has chanced upon? Given his experience and given what he knows, he has a lot under his sleeves. And by this statement, I don't undermine anything he has said. I just want to know, so that I know the kind of work that we need to do to support this cause. Because coming from him is a big one. And I always respect him. He knows the stuff. And where he comes from, I have no doubt in my mind that if this information you want to churn out, it is well-grounded and all that. But we want to see so that we can double our efforts. Because then it tells us that so far what we have done is not enough. We need to do more. So I will urge him to help us. But given what he knows and by his training and experience, he cannot also divulge all those things. I still respect that. But that gives us hope that we need to double our efforts and strengthen the frontiers of this democracy, because we can't let it through our fingers. The advice he has given, I have taken them personally serious, and then I'm sure the state has also taken so, and then all of us should see it as a client call that we need to work at it and save this democracy. We have been under military rule, and people like us who were even young people at the time, the kind of things we experienced, we don't want to go back to that old order.
Right.
So we have to do everything to salvage this. So I salute him for bringing it up, but we need more information so that we can also help him to do his work. But having said all that, I don't doubt him at all. I know he knows his work and all that. But if he can give us more information, we'll be fine, so that we know the direction in which we can, strengthen and make democracy work for our people.
Right.
Interesting. He says if we're not careful, by 2025, we could experience another history. That's how he puts it. But let's get into the papers.
Verify, huh? So I'll start with the Daily Guide newspaper. Banner stories. On SDG Action Summit, Nana Akufo-Addo pushes for more youth investment. 2.37 million euros ambulance not fit for purpose, according to Jakpa. EC reopens transfer of votes. NDC MPs boycott vetting. Government launches 1.5 million cedis hydro fund. Let's get into the stories now, starting with this ongoing ambulance case. The story is on page 3, and it reads, Richard Jakpa, the businessman at the center of the 2.37 million euros defective ambulances trial, yesterday admitted that the ambulances in the state which they were when delivered in December 2014 rather, were not fit for purpose because there was a clause in the contract between government and Big C General LLC, the supplier, which barred governments from using the ambulances until they were officially handed over. And I listened to him yesterday explaining, and he says that there was some procedure in place. They were supposed to install the equipment, train some people from here in Ghana to be able to handle the ambulances and all that it comes within. So maybe they rushed the case and, but Doc?
And that the components were actually available, but it was in the twilight of their administration.
It was just a matter of
Alex
time.
Egbefia, I'm sure, on hindsight, I am sure if Alex Egbefia, the former health minister, had known that it could evolve like this, they would have probably gone ahead within the time period and ensured that the fixing of the components for them to be complete ambulances would have been done. But
before they even handed over.
Minimankano, not Katri.
Okay, so here I want to do 3 stories in the Daily Guide newspaper. Then we come to you and then we go back to Benjamin. On SDG Action Summit, Nana pushes for more youth investments. President Akufo-Addo wants his fellow African leaders to invest more in the development of the continent's youth. He believes it is one of the key interventions to turn around the fortunes of the continent. That, he said, would also help achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Mr. President, what are you doing for Ghanaian youth? Leave the EC alone. Ghana is inching to another crucial milestone towards this. An editorial. I want to do the story about EC reopening voter transfer. That's on page 6. Yeah, here it is. So in an effort to enhance accessibility and voter participation in the upcoming elections, the Electoral Commission has announced the reopening of applications for the transfer of vote and proxy voting. This initiative is targeted at security agencies, public universities, and prison facilities across the country. And that was in a statement released by Fred Tete, Deputy Director at Research, Monitoring and Evaluation from the Commission. So these 3 stories for your quick reflections, Doc.
Yes, I'll start with the EC and voter transfer and then proxy voting processes. Yes, these are very important processes. We need them at all times. The EC, at least not quite long that they've been in office, they will, work very well in this area. My hope and prayer that they will be able to execute it well and then make sure that they get the basics right. We don't want situations where they take a decision the next day, they make a U-turn on them, all that. They should reflect on these things before they come out. But I have no doubt in my mind that they should be able to do a good job. The youth and development. The president is promising, urging his fellow leaders in Africa to do that. That's a good call, but charity begins at home. We want to see more in this country. There are a lot of people, young people, who are parading in our streets doing absolutely nothing. And remember, the National Security Minister did inform us that threat that they pose to the security of this country. So I believe that that message must be drilled down in Ghana so that we see the action in this regard, because the youth are yearning for jobs. Not that they are lazy, but that they want to work. So the state should be able to create that opportunity, that enabling environment for them to apply their God-given talent and make life for themselves. That is all that we want to tell our president.
What about this ongoing ambulance trial? Any quick reflections before we go to Ben?
Oh, I'll leave it with the call.
All right, sure. Benjamin.
Well, let's get into other stories. And the New Finder newspaper as well start from experts stress strict fiscal discipline to support economic recovery. President outlines 4-point agenda to accelerate SDGs implementation. I think you touched a bit on that. I'm more concerned about SDGs 1 and 2, poverty and, access to food and everything in there. Prosecution of persons behind financial sector mess too slow. That's according to Dr. Addison. Clocksack declares nationwide strike. We brought it to you in the news today. And 1.5 million Ghana cedis allocated to hydrological fund as seed money towards mitigating flood risks, improving water management. Where do I even start? Let's start from page 4, shall we? Let me quickly get there. I'll be very quick. So, key speakers at the inaugural Quarterly Economic Roundtable Forum have highlighted the urgent need for the government to ensure strict fiscal discipline to ensure long-term macroeconomic stability. Now, the program under the theme Restoring Macroeconomic Stability brought together seasoned economists, government officials, policy think tanks, and academia to brainstorm on the subject. Dr. Neil Kwekusowa, a renowned economist and country director of the International Growth Center, the keynote speaker at the forum, highlighted Ghana's historical struggle with sustained macro stability, pointing to the persistent challenges such as ballooning budget deficits, soaring debt levels, and volatile exchange rates. It goes on and on. It talks about prolonged tax holidays being criticized, unpredictable events, but there's also, there are those events we can predict. Wanton borrowing, high inflation, and all of that. We're talking about cement prices, but now who caused them? As was mentioned yesterday, if you look since 2000 and what? From 2010, thereabouts, cement prices have increased by 1 cedi, 2 cedis every year or two, right? So right from a certain period, I think after 2017 or 2019, if you see the sharp spike, it tells you something. It's not just about, oh, cement prices have increased. Now who caused them? What are causing those dynamics? There's also, let me look at the ClockSAC one and then the hydrological one, and then I will just wrap it up. So I'll go back to page 2. The Civil and Local Government Staff Association Ghana has declared a nationwide strike effective today, Wednesday, July the 3rd, 2024, after the government's failure to implement a new salary structure for its members. We know the story. If you didn't follow the news, they are going to meet with the Labour Commission today, but they are saying that the salary arrangements that should have been met by government have not been met. And yes, they will go and meet with the Labour Commission, but that is no guarantee that they will pick up their tools again. And finally, that story on page 9, 1.5 million Ghana cedis allocated to hydrological fund. So government has set up the Ghana Hydrological Fund, a crucial initiative aimed at mitigating flood risks and improving water management across the nation. With a seed sum of 1.5 million Ghana cedis, government expects stakeholders, including development partners, to make financial contributions to support the fund. It goes back to that saying, which has been used today. Borrowed water doesn't taste, a certain way because it's borrowed. But we borrow on everything. We've had our flooding challenges for how long? And every time we're relying on others. And the last we heard of the Works and Housing Minister, he said, they had only about 2% of what was needed to do the work in terms of flooding. So I guess even today, I'll be giving you the weather forecast at the end of the day. Thunderstorms threatened. If it pours in your area and there's flooding, you could be affected. But Doc, any quick thoughts on that?
I'll start with a hydrological funding and all that. Yes, when I hear these things, I ask myself whether our leaders really care for the people of this country. We have had this problem, as you rightly said, time and again. And the problem doesn't seem to go away. There are so many factors that contribute to that, but as if there are no people who are responsible for this. I'm surprised. It starts with planning. We don't demand these things. We need to demand them. It is our right. We have what? The right to what? We are entitled to that. The public has the right to know how their resources are used, how they manage on behalf of what? The society. We don't demand this. So politicians take it for a right. We need to what? Stand up and make sure that the resources that we give to the state are used and used for distribution. I'll go on to also look at the issue of ClockSAC, strike and the rest of them. All the time, issues that need to be dealt with dispatch. We just waste time, allow, strike to take place, man hours wasted and all that. Then they will call back, government is ready to set you go to work and all that. Why? If you know that you need to settle them, do that quick. Because at the end of the day, the man hours who are lost cannot be regained. And why are we wasting a lot of productive time? I think we need to double our efforts and then fix these basics. The issue of what? Fiscal discipline. I ask myself, can this government maintain that? It is one of the governments that has been very weak in this regard, where they don't maintain discipline. And what is so funny and annoying at the same time is that look at how IMF is giving us this amount of money. Anytime that tranche comes and all that, you see report that follows. Oh, we have been able to meet this condition, and now they've given us. So I ask myself, why would you allow somebody to hold a key, behind you and say, do this? When you do and you praise yourself, you have been able to meet the time, our figures are right, we are getting so and so. On your own, what did you do?
Right.
I believe that our leaders, some of them are not up to the task because or a sheer wickedness that you don't want to support the enterprise of this country. And that, because I can see how you mismanage the system, then somebody comes in and then walk you through a very tight rope and you are able to follow on your own.
Right.
Why can't you do it? I don't get it.
I don't get it either, but thank you for the thought on those matters. Let's get into our next paper.
There's a story in the Ghanaian publisher I wanted, but let me start from the banner stories. Government sets up hydrological fund to address drainage dredging challenges. Garmanche ministers clean Accra. That's ahead of the Homowo Festival. Financing gap threats to Africa's SDGs. President Akufo-Addo. And I was just reading a bit of it when you were talking, and it's interesting to know that, like Doc said, charity begins at home. So here's the story. President Akufo-Addo has advised African leaders to explore innovative ways of ratcheting up domestic financing for the successful implementation of the SDGs. And the continent's commitment to SDGs remain unquestionable, yet our efforts are consistently, that's not, let me skip to the part where, so to address the existential threats, the president rallied the continent to work assiduously to enhance the mobilization of domestic resources by improving tax collection systems. The respective governments, in addition, ought to resolve combating illicit financial flows and promoting a culture of accountability and transparency in the public financial management. Those just feed into charity begins at home. And I know everyone reading this story is wondering, how transparent has this government been? And are we actually mobilizing resources domestically? We are not paying our debts. We are still borrowing. And the president is telling other African leaders to what? Assiduously mobilize resources domestically.
There's a story about Gandhiji, Mahatma Gandhi. And though, yes, some put him in a certain light. You remember his statue at the University of Ghana being pulled down for some racism. But there's a story about him that one day a woman went to him and said, "Wise man, my child is too fond of sweets. I want you to talk to him so he stops." And Mahatma told her to go and come back a week after. And then he spoke to the boy. Then the woman was curious and asked, "Why did you not tell him last week?" And he said to the woman, "Last week, I myself was struggling with eating sweets." That's where we are. Man. We ourselves, I mean, how do you tell someone something when you yourself, it is what it is? It is
what it is. There was this other story that I just wanted to take a quick swipe at, and then I'll come to you, Doc. Finance Minister slams minorities and patriotic conduct. And he's saying that the threat to cedi depreciation is the speculations, and so we should just... Okay, I'll just read the story a bit and then I'll come to you. Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam, Finance Minister, says, or has encouraged all stakeholders, particularly the minority in Parliament, to stop fueling speculation to enable the cedi to remain strong. He said the cedi had become stronger due to implementation of sound policies, completion of the country's debt restructuring with bilateral official creditors and Eurobond holders, and expected flows from external sources. And now the only threat to cedi depreciating is speculation. Those two stories from the Ghanaian publisher newspaper for your quick reflections, Doc.
I'll start with the cedi depreciation and all the commentary from the minister. I listened to him and I said, "Mr. Minister, hold on a minute. All right. You now saying that you have found policy, the cedi is strong and you are doing all these things, and you are still expecting external inflows and the rest of them. Why can't we organize what we have here so that we don't go to them? I mean, we have everything here, resources, name them, countless. And the little that comes, we receive from outside, we are so happy and all that. It's so funny. because I think we can do better if we manage resources well without somebody with a cane behind us. I mean, directing us what to do. Then our independence has become meaningless, because Nkrumah and co were fighting for a political independence as well as economic emancipation from the shackles and tentacles of the big powers. Today, after we have moved out and gained political independence, economic independence is a problem for us, because our leaders will not do things right. They will always want to cut corners, create problems for us, and at the end of the day, we go to their mother called IMF, who is always ready to support us. Let us remember that the day that these groups, these bodies, they will disappoint us, we'll be in crisis. We need to make sure that we mobilize things ourselves and then forget about those who want to really help us. Let us begin the forward march here. I'll talk about public financing, public finance management, and the rest of them. That we want to encourage. The president was talking about tax collection and all that. Yes, I understand that from governance perspective, there is always the need for states to mobilize resources to run its affairs. That is what we call extractive capacity of the state. But we want to ensure that the money that you take, we want to ensure value for money. What do you use it for? All right. We have a lot of projects we have used state resources to build. Look at our affordable housing project. They are all in the bush. And who talks about that? We go about, abusing this fares, abusing state resources, and yet you encourage people that pay your tax, do this, do that, do that. Yes, our citizens will do, but always it is incumbent upon our leaders to do what is needful, because they are entitled to do that. They have to do that. That's why we have put them in those offices to do things on our behalf. So I believe that everything that the president has said, we want to see it being manifest in this country.
Thank you, Doc. I'll just do the banner stories, headlines. The Accra Times says, quality of democracy is determined by Parliament, according to Alban Bagbin. Information Minister briefs Parliament on RTI 2024 outlook. Gregory Afoko's family worried. Cucumber culture, a rich heritage worth preserving. Those are just some banner stories here. Benjamin.
Well, Doc, we have to go, but I'll just give these headlines and pieces of information. The Daily Searchlight, the only story, the others we've already looked at. Pentecost pastor shot and robbed at Papase, Pastor Samuel Kobla Na. And we commiserate with the Pentecostal family, the entire Christian family, and Ghana as a whole. Robbed and shot. Very, very sad. There's also this one I found interesting on the entertainment page. Shaxi. The first time I saw it, I was like, is it a Shatta taxi? Yeah. And I hear he says he invested $2 million in that to create jobs for the youth, for young people, and that he could have invested it on stuff for himself, Rolls Royce, Lamborghini and stuff. I think we need to see more of that, more of such investments. I'm not the biggest fan of Shatta Wali, but Nipayadia Osayi, and that's a good thing. Just to wrap, two things. I've seen this piece of information from the Information Ministry, the Public Policy Manager for Anglophone West Africa for Meta, Sade Dada, talking about content creators now being able, I think the steps are in place, to monetize Facebook. So if you're not aware of it, that is part of it. Facebook is going to share revenue with you. There are plans for that. And look out today. We are looking at light rain showers in some places, but in some places it's going to be pretty hard. 25 degrees largely, averagely, across the country. But it's already pouring here in Accra, at least this dawn. So be on the lookout. If you're stepping out, carry your umbrella. And that's how we're going to cap off the news review. Doc, thank you so much for your time.
I am also grateful. Have a good day.
I wish you the same. And that is Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, political scientist and director of the Center for European Studies at the University of Ghana. We end with Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, throwing that challenge to you. Come, if you're a man. They'll screen you for free for prostate issues. Come, if you're a woman, they'll screen you for fertility issues. Gratis. Reach out to them at any of their branches, starting with Accra, Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Kronoma Bwehian behind the Angel Educational Complex, the Stakradi Anaji Estate, Tema Committee 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Esiamanzima. You can reach them on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Sports is up next. Do stay for that.